Have you ever heard a voice, just when you thought you had died? Not from a doctor, not from a family member, but a sound seemed to come from deep within your very soul. That voice spoke just one sentence to me, and from that moment on, my life was never the same. My name is Claire Whitmore. Before everything happened, I was just an ordinary person, or at least I tried my best to appear normal. I lived under the spotlight, chasing approval, counting likes, and flashing fake smiles at parties I never intended to attend. Modeling, branding, becoming a shell of a person. But no one knew. I was afraid every time I looked in the mirror. Not because I thought I was ugly, but because I couldn't see myself at all. I once asked myself a question. If I disappeared, would anyone notice? That question should have been just a passing sadness. Until the accident happened. It was Thanksgiving Day, 2022. I woke up early, grabbed some leftover waffles from the fridge, and drove out to meet someone special. Or at least, that's what I had convinced myself. It was supposed to be a work meeting, but really, it was a toxic relationship I kept clinging to. It was drizzling. The roads were slick. And then, an unexpected call made me glance down at the passenger seat. Just 3 seconds. Just one look at the screen. Then I heard the crash. The shattering. The sound of metal twisting like it was screaming. And after that, nothing. I woke up, but not in a hospital. Not in an ambulance. I woke up in a space that had no color, no sound, no light, and yet I could hear. I could hear the very heartbeat of truth. I heard a voice calling. I didn't know where it came from, but it shook me to my core. Wake her up. One sentence. Clear. Powerful. But there was no one there. No form. Nobody. No face for me to see. Only that voice, and the overwhelming feeling that every memory in existence was rushing back at once. I thought I was hallucinating. But then I started to remember not memories from this life, but things that didn't belong to me. Not from this lifetime. I saw shattered images, a field, a young mother weeping, a little girl resting in the arms of her grandmother, the same grandmother who had passed away when I was 8. And then everything vanished. Empty. I screamed, but no sound came out. I tried to run, but I had no legs. I began to understand. I was no longer in the physical world. Then that voice spoke again. If you don't remember who you are, how do you know you're truly alive? I had never asked myself that question before. Back then, all I needed were contracts, pretty photos, fame, and enough shares on social media. I thought that was existence. But here, in this place with nobody, no identity, I started to feel something different. A truth waiting to be revealed. A question begging to be answered. Where was I? Why was I still conscious, even though my brain had flatlined? And whose voice was that? I didn't have all the answers, but I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't dreaming. I wasn't hallucinating. I had left my body. I had gone somewhere else. And I had begun a journey. One thing no one ever prepares you for. But that was only the beginning. I'm going to tell you what happened during those 3 weeks in a coma. What I saw and why I didn't want to come back. And the message I received from the other side about the real reason we come to this earth. I wasn't born to be famous. I never dreamed of becoming a supermodel when I was a little girl. What I truly longed for was to be seen in someone's eyes without having to earn it, without having to prove I was worthy. I grew up in a broken home. My mother was a beautiful woman, but always sad. She once told me, "You have to be better than me, stronger than me. Never let anyone see your weakness." So I learned to hide my tears just like she did. I learned to smile when all I wanted was to scream. I learned to shine, just so no one could see the cracks in my heart. At 19, I signed my first contract with a small agency in Chicago. That's when I stepped into the world of evening gowns, photo studios, forced smiles, and judgmental stares that sized you up from head to toe. In that world, your worth wasn't based on who you were, but on how you looked in a size 0 dress. Little by little, I began to lose myself. Every time I put on makeup, I was layering on another mask. Every photo shoot, I edited out another piece of the truth. And eventually, I couldn't even remember what my real face looked like when I wasn't trying to be someone else. I entered relationships like someone starving for emotion. I called it love, but it was a desperate plea to be seen, to be validated. I once dated a man well known in the art scene. He was nearly 20 years older than I, drove a luxury car, and spoke as if every word that left his mouth belonged etched in stone. He once looked at me and said, "You've got real potential. If you could just learn to be a little quieter." And I smiled. I swallowed my response. I kept my silence just to be kept. I started doing things I hated, going to places I didn't belong, wearing outfits that made me feel like a mannequin. All because I was terrified of losing the one thing I thought I had, my looks. I remember one night, I came home from a big brand event. In the photos, I stood beside the CEO of a major cosmetics company, glowing like a princess. But after I wiped off the makeup, I looked into the mirror and didn't recognize the person staring back. I cried. Not loudly, just silent tears sliding down my face, as if some version of me deep inside was slowly dying. I remember whispering a thought no one could hear. If it all ended here, maybe that would be okay. It wasn't that I wanted to die. I just didn't have a reason to keep living this kind of life anymore. What I didn't know was, that quiet thought would become an invitation. The universe or God, or whatever name you want to give it, somehow heard me. And he pulled me out of this world to show me another. A world where you don't have to be beautiful, don't have to be famous, don't have to be perfect. To be loved. But before we get to that part, I want you to remember this. You can be forgotten by the whole world. But if you forget yourself, that is when you truly disappear. I'm going to tell you about the moment of the crash, the exact second I left my body for the first time. What I saw from above looking down at myself, and why I truly believed I had died, but my mind hadn't gone anywhere. There are moments in life that give no warning. They don't send an email. They don't text you. They don't knock. It just happens. And after that, nothing is ever the same. That morning there was a drizzle. Not enough to turn on the wipers, but just enough to make the road as slick as a hidden trap. I got in the car, one hand holding a coffee, the other pulling up the map to the meeting spot. A man, a so-called business partner, but in truth, someone I was using to fill the emotional void. I wasn't going to see him out of love. I went because I didn't want to be alone. I drove onto the I-94 interstate. My heartbeat was steady, but inside, there was a strange emptiness. It felt like I was leaving something behind, but I couldn't quite tell what it was. I heard my phone buzzing on the floor. It had fallen from the passenger seat the day before. I leaned down, just for a moment. Exactly 3 seconds. And then, I heard a loud crash, like thunder exploding. It felt as if time had split in two. All sound vanished. Everything slowed down. The car lost control. I don't remember how many times it spun. All I remember is the feeling of letting go. Not of the steering wheel, but of life itself. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in the car anymore. I was above it all, suspended in a strange layer of air. I looked down and saw myself. My body lay motionless in the wreckage. The car was crushed like an empty tin can. My hair was wet, blood was trickling down my forehead. One arm was twisted beneath me. But I didn't feel a thing. No pain, no cold, no fear. All I felt was a strange sense of detachment. I saw another car pull over. A man rushed toward me. A nurse, I guessed he had a medical bag in his hand. He shouted something, but I couldn't hear the words. I could only see his face trembling. I tried to call out, "I'm here. I'm okay." But no sound came out. Then I looked again straight into my own eyes. Half open. Empty. As if no one was home inside. I began to understand. I had left. And the person in that car was no longer me. In that moment, I didn't panic. Strangely, I felt an overwhelming peace. It was like I had been holding it all together my whole life, and finally, someone permitted me to let go. No more pretending. No more proving. No more trying to be enough for anyone. And then, I heard it. That same voice, gentle as the wind, but echoing through every cell in my being. Don't be afraid. This isn't the final place. I was being pulled not by hand, not by gravity, but by emotion. It felt like something, or someone was inviting me to step through an invisible doorway. Down below, I saw rescue workers calling for help. One of them placed his hands on my chest, preparing to start CPR. But I wasn't paying attention anymore. I was drifting toward a place I'd never been, and yet somehow, it felt deeply familiar. The farther I drifted from my body, the lighter I felt. Not just in weight, but free from sorrow, from failure, from every expectation I had ever carried. Then I began to see the light. It wasn't blinding. It wasn't like the harsh glare of an operating room. It was a light that pulsed, that felt alive. A light that made me want to cry, because it loved me. Unconditionally. In that moment, I knew. I was about to cross over. And I also knew. I wasn't ready. But I had no choice. And there, between two worlds, I came face to face with something no one had ever taught me how to confront: my soul. Stripped bare. No mask. No makeup. No pretending. In the next part, I'll tell you about the realm I was led into, a world unlike anything you've ever known. And the very first question that he asked me completely broke me. I don't know how far I had gone. I just remember the light kept expanding wider, deeper. Not blinding, but soft as if it were my own heart, glowing from within. I didn't walk. I didn't fly. I was carried, moved by a kind of motion that human language has no name for. I stepped into a place, with no walls, no ceiling, and yet there was space, there was light, and an unmistakable presence. I didn't see a face, but I could feel that presence looking straight through me, as if it saw everything I had ever thought, ever done, ever tried to hide. And then, no judgment, no blame, no anger, just one question not spoken aloud, but heard deep within my mind and soul. How much did you love while you were alive? I didn't understand at first. I blurted out the usual answer. I loved my friends, my mom, my ex. Not who you loved, the presence replied. I'm asking how much of yourself did you love with? I went silent. I had never thought of that before. All I ever knew was how to run, to strive, to achieve, to hold on. But I had never stopped to ask, did I ever truly love myself? And then everything began to unfold. It was like a movie. No rewinding. No remote control. I saw my childhood again the night I hid under the covers, crying alone while my parents fought in the next room. I saw my trembling hand signing my first contract, telling myself, if I just become famous, I'll be okay. I saw all the times I forced a smile after being criticized, the moments I pretended to agree when deep down, I wanted to run. I saw, every time I betrayed myself. It wasn't God punishing me. It was me. I was the one who had hurt myself the most. With each scene, I didn't just remember, I felt what others had felt because of me. When I was cold, I felt the sting of the pain they swallowed in silence. When I was careless, I felt their loneliness, the kind they never dared to speak. No voice accused me. No one called me bad or guilty. There was only truth, and it weighed more than any judgment ever could. That's when I began to cry, not with tears, but with awakening, that guides the presence of light, never left. It simply stayed quietly, waiting for me to ask the next question. And this time I whispered, if I ask for another chance, is it too late? And then for the first time, I felt a wave of love wash over me. Not earned, not conditional, just love. As long as you remember who you are, you can always begin again, even from the middle of the broken pieces. I wanted to stay forever in that place where I didn't have to do anything to be loved. But I knew my journey wasn't over yet. Before the light began to fade, I saw something. My mother, sitting with her head bowed in the hallway of the hospital, her hands clutching a rosary, her lips trembling with desperate prayers. And next to her, my little sister, holding the old teddy bear I'd had since I was a child. I couldn't leave. Not yet. There were still things left unsaid. Love I hadn't given. Mistakes I hadn't made right. And that was the moment. I was asked one final question. If you were given the chance to return, would you dare to live differently? In the next part, I'll share why I chose to come back, even when every part of my heart wanted to stay. And the lesson that saved my soul right when I thought there was nothing left to save. Because when that light asked me, if you were given the chance to return, would you dare to live differently? Everything changed. I didn't answer right away. Because I wasn't sure. Wasn't sure if there was still a place in that world for someone as shattered as me. I wasn't sure if I had the strength to start over after being the one who had spent years tearing myself apart. But then I remembered my mother. I remembered her trembling hands holding that rosary. I remembered the last time she hugged me, whispering the same words she always did. Be strong, my girl. I used to think she didn't understand me. But in that moment, I realized she had always been there. I was the one who had left. I remembered my little sister, the one who once wrote me a letter when I was 15. You're the person I want to become. But now, I just wish you'd be happy. I never replied to that letter. And I remembered myself. That 6-year-old girl was standing alone in the middle of the schoolyard, trembling because no one wanted to play with her. I wanted to hold her, to tell her, I'm sorry I left you behind, just to try and please the world. I decided to come back, not to restart my life, but to relearn how to love. The final voice I heard in that sacred space didn't come from a single being. It felt like it came from everything around me. Love never left you. You just forgot how to believe in it. And just like that, I fell. No screaming. No crash. Just a soft, warm descent as if someone was gently holding me, carrying me backward into the world again. I opened my eyes slowly. Dim hospital lights. The sterile scent of disinfectant. The hum of a ventilator. I was back. Someone stood beside me, their hand resting gently on mine. My mother. She was whispering a prayer. When I moved ever so slightly, she looked up, and for the first time, I saw her eyes fill with tears of joy. I didn't say a word. I couldn't, the breathing tube was still in. But somehow she knew. The next day, after the ventilator was removed, the doctor walked into the room and said, "We're not exactly sure what kept you alive for those 3 weeks. Medicine can't explain everything. But you're back." What I wanted to say was, I came back, not because I survived. I came back because I had never truly lived. I asked to be discharged earlier than expected. I wanted to go home, not just the place where I lived, but the place where I belonged. I began to write. Not to tell a mystical story, but to say I'm sorry to myself, through words, through truth. I left the modeling industry. I no longer wanted to be a representative of perfection. I chose instead to become someone who inspires not through achievements, but through authenticity. I went back to school. I studied psychology, emotional healing, and spiritual transformation. Not because I needed a new career, but because there are so many people like me who lost themselves and never even realized it. These days, whenever someone asks me, "Did you die?" I smile and say, "No. I just forgot how to truly live." I'll tell you the most mysterious piece of it all. Who is it that woke me up from that coma? And what happened 8 months later that made me realize sometimes your soul can travel through time to save you. 8 months after I was discharged, I still often dreamed of that light. Some strange, mystical dream, just quiet, warm moments, as if someone was beside me. But I couldn't see them. One autumn evening, I sat in a small room I had just rented, the first place I ever chose, not because it was picture perfect, but because it made me feel at peace. I was rereading the hospital journal, the one my mother had written every single day during those 3 weeks I was in a coma. Every page was stained with tears. I turned to page 19. My mother had written, "Today the doctor said you might not wake up. I don't know what to do. So I just sat beside you, placed my hand on your forehead and whispered, 'Wake her up, please. Wake her up.'" I froze. Goosebumps covered my entire body. That was the voice I had heard in the coma. The sentence that started it all. The one I thought had come from deep within my soul. I broke down in tears. Not from fear, but because, for the first time, I understood. True love doesn't need a face. It can move beyond skin, beyond time, beyond life and death. And it will always find a way to reach us, even if it's just through a whispered prayer. That girl was standing in the middle of the light, wide-eyed, as if she had just awakened in a place she didn't recognize. And then, the me I am now stepped forward, took her hand, and said, "You were never left behind. I came back to remind you, you are worthy of love just as you are, without becoming anyone else." I woke up suddenly, not afraid, not panicked, just knowing the circle had closed. I was the one who woke myself up, not through science, not through some miracle, but through truth, through love, through a deeper version of my soul, one that crossed time to return and rescue me. The voice I heard in that coma, I now believe it wasn't from anyone else. It was me, the future me, the me who had learned to love, the me who had learned to forgive, the me who had finally learned to let go. And this is why I'm telling this story. Not to make you believe that I died and came back, but to remind you of this. Maybe you've never fallen into a coma, but how many times have you lived without truly living? Maybe you've never walked through the light, but how many times have you stood in the dark and forgotten how to even say your name? I didn't come back to tell a spiritual story. I came back to tell you, you don't have to die to be reborn. You just have to let go of what you're not. I used to be afraid of losing myself, but now I know I never truly lost anything. I just temporarily forgot that I was always worthy. And so are you. If you're in one of the darkest seasons of your life, maybe just maybe the healed version of you is whispering from the other side. Wake them up. Wake you up. If you've ever gone through something that made you feel like you weren't yourself anymore, or if you're simply learning how to live again from the inside out, leave a comment below. Share with me, and with others in this community, what moment pulled you out of the darkness. Maybe it was something someone said. Maybe it was a hug that held you together. Or maybe it was just that one quiet moment when you looked in the mirror and decided, I deserve more than this. Every story you share could be the light someone else is searching for in their darkest moment. And if you believe this is a journey worth walking together, hit follow or subscribe. Because I have so many more stories to tell. And who knows, one of them might be the answer you've been waiting for.